So, before we begin this video, I'd just like to say this video is going to spoil pretty much everything about the Bionicle storyline. I'd highly recommend checking it out. The plot is about a world of biomechanical beings, basically inside out cyborg beings. It's about these heroes called Toa, who have to defend the biomechanical civilians, known as Matoran, from the evil forces in their universe, with their ultimate goal being to awaken the exalted being named Matanui, who was sent into slumber by his evil and very jealous brother, the Makuta. It's a story that definitely prioritizes world building over characters. I mean, every time Makuta shows up, he's basically an entirely different character. That being said, it has one of the best plot twists I've ever seen in a fictional story, that every ounce of world building had led up to. And it also has some powerful emotional moments that can only happen out of an alien world like this one. This video was made mainly for the rare overlap of Bionicle and Deltarune fans out there. I'm not even convinced it was inspiration for Toby's story at all. I just thought these ideas could have been interesting to bring up. This is your one chance to experience this incredibly cool and alien world before I spoil everything. Okay, time to spoil everything. So here's the massive big-time epic no returning from learning the spoiler. Matanui's body is the universe in which the Matoran and Toa reside. The Matoran are like his blood cells, and the chambers of the universe are like different parts of his consciousness. His brain is the capital city Metronui. The island of Matanui is a mask over his face. Voyanui is an open wound on his chest. The prison known as the Pit is his stomach, and Cardanui is his heart. To simplify, in regards to the most iconic Bionicle island, Matanui, it was named after the being Matanui, so please forgive the confusion. The body of Matanui is immediately underneath the island. Therefore, one of the requirements to wake him up is that these robotic chicken bug things called the Borak needed to be awakened and clear the island of its homes and structures and vegetation and stuff so the big guy, Matanui, can awaken. So the trade-off is, if we awaken Matanui, the world above him needs to be destroyed. Bionicle had a contingency plan for this. Just get all of the island's inhabitants back through to Metronui, where they hailed from. But why do we want to awaken Matanui, then? Well, Matanui's slumber brought the Matoran universe to a state of misery. A great cataclysm happened when he fell that destroyed massive portions of the universe. Forces of evil came in from many places that subjugated the innocents. The Matoran universe post-fall was a very miserable place to exist. And we see this in Deltarune with the Dark Worlds. The church is overrun by darkness and confusion, the cyber city is taken over by an authoritarian empress, Card Castle and TV worlds suffer from crippling loneliness due to separation from the Lightners. But the island of Matanui was mostly peaceful. Occasionally, they'd be attacked by the sickness of Makuta seeping in from the underground, but life apart from that was considered to be a paradise of sorts. There's always an empty feeling among the Matoran because Matanui, their ancient protector, was sleeping. For all intents and purposes, he was lost, and the void that Matanui's absence provided could never truly be fulfilled until Matanui was awakened once again. So let's compare the Bionicle locations. Let's say hometown relates to the island of Matanui, and the Dark Worlds relate to the Matoran universe. Like the insides of the Matoran universe. The worse the residents of hometown suffer is the feeling of absence due to their missing friend, December Holiday. So in this parallel, December would not be the night because I stopped believing in Death Knight when I was 5. December would, essentially, be a slumbering being of cosmic power. The lost being who is still with you in the dark, and their presence is felt in every dark world. The angel, perhaps? So this brings us to Death's soul theory. A little controversial, but the lyrics of Raise Up Your Bat, the hearts and shoes in Death's closet, and the one pair of hoof shoes she has being right next to Asriel's retainer, meaning some of the items in that room are just not hers. A human kid who maybe wore fake deer antlers to fit in alongside Chris, who wore fake goat horns. Des was led away. She became lost. She lost her physical form until she was, essentially, just a collection of memories. A collection of memories who owed it to herself to not forget, or at least try not to forget, who she is. This reminds me of the end of Bionicle's storyline, where Makuta removed Matanui's consciousness and stuck it in the Mask of Life, essentially making Matanui not much more than Matanui's memories inside a small mask-shaped character. More on this later. So I would like to talk a little bit about Undertale's Chara soul theory, a theory that frustrates me because there's equal evidence for and against it. The theory is that Chara is neither all good or all evil. They're just a child. But they're a child who kind of forgot who they were and transformed into a small heart-shaped soul. So as you, the player, lead Frisk around the underground, your actions give Chara their purpose back, essentially. So if you play the pacifist route, Chara becomes good, remembers that Asgore and Asriel and Toriel are all their friends, and even drops their childhood prejudice against other humans by seeing Frisk be such a kind and compassionate being. The genocide route teaches Chara that the only way to solve all the world's problems is to forcefully become the most powerful and strike down everyone who could hurt them. Because the most powerful. The genocide route is the only in-game route Chara refers to themselves as a demon, essentially the name given to evil angels. If Des is the soul, this could be Des's perspective the whole game, having only partial memories of who she was, and relying on the player to remind her who she is. Now, who does this remind me of in Bionicle? Let's shift focus from Matanui and focus on another character, Ignika. Now, before Matanui's consciousness was put into the Mask of Life, the mask itself was kind of alive. The mask was an entity known as Ignika, a powerful and uncontained source of life. The mask was made in case Matanui were to start dying, which, spoiler alert, the 2006 to 2007 storyline was all about Matanui's impending death. The mask itself, being a source of life, was alive itself, but it wasn't really a harbinger of good or evil. It was kind of an isolated entity that didn't really understand the idea of morality right away. Its prime directive was to protect itself, and so it mutated others into guardians for it. For the purpose of this video, I'll talk about the two characters who provided substantially different frameworks for how the mask acts as the story goes forward. The first is Vaison. Vaison was the seventh Paraka, who wielded a spear called the Spear of Fusion. He wasn't necessarily evil, but he was chaotic, and also kind of selfish. He learned about the Mask of Life at about the same time as the other Paraka. He learned of its power, and out of ego, he felt like he was the only one worthy of wielding that power. So he traveled to the island, got there first, passed through all the trial chambers to get to it, and when he got to it, it got fused to him. But after Vaison got fused to the Mask of Life, he developed a mad obsession with it, keeping it as his possession. In a sense, he wasn't fully in control of his own actions, but his obsession was his own. Even after the mask got separated from him, he tried to chase the mask down to the cord to get it back. This reminds me of the Weird Route. Noelle's obsession is her own, even though a Weird Route player forces Noelle to do all the bad things she does in that route. So, the mask does learn from its handler due to its limited consciousness, just like Chara from Chara Soul Theory learns from the player, And throughout 2006 and a little bit of 2007, the mask does a lot of bad or macabre things, like mutating others into guardians for it. But one thing the mask did learn from Vaison is that Vaison kind of sucks as a handler. Vaison didn't respect the mask as an individual, treating it as an object to siphon power from, a lot like how Chris doesn't respect the soul. The mask looks for a new handler and sees Matt Toro. Matt Toro was a Toa, someone who showed the traits of heroism and selflessness. The mask was intrigued by this idea: heroism, selflessness, and the mask developed throughout the course of the story to want to be like Matt Toro. Matt Toro, the Ice Toa, who used ice magic. Now, Matt Toro's story is kind of the opposite of a weird route. We'll get to that. This could imply the soul goes to Noelle in either route, but the key difference between the routes would be that the weird route is through force and the normal route is through developing mutual trust for each other. The weird route does seem to be a commentary on speedrunner glitches, so if the soul getting to Noelle is a key trait of Deltarune's story, it makes sense a slower route could revolve a mutual building of trust, and the weird route would be just speed running, doing it through force. And I also could see the soul building mutual trust with Noelle if the soul is just Noelle's sister. So the mask eventually rejects Vaison as its guardian because of Vaison's pride and arrogance, and escapes to the Sea of Mari Nui. Matt Toro goes after it and eventually becomes the final guardian of the Mask of Life during one of the darkest moments of the Bionicle storyline: the death of Matanui. The Mask of Life had been watching Matt Toro since the beginning of the 2006 storyline, seeing every selfless act he committed throughout it. But the final event resonated heavily with the mask. Matt Toro wore the Mask of Life and dropped down into Carde Nui, the heart of the universe, and he essentially allowed the Mask of Life to transfer Matt Toro's life energy over to Matanui, bringing Matanui back to life. That way, the universe wouldn't shut down, and Matt Toro's friends could live the life that Matt Toro no longer could. Because of this one selfless act, the Mask of Life was able to decide who it really was: a selfless hero. The Mask of Life created a body for itself, Toa Ignica, comparable to the vessel we create at the beginning of Deltarune. The 2008 storyline goes on to show the Ignica fighting valiantly for the side of good, sometimes still making choices based on his incomplete understanding of right and wrong, like the very disturbing stuff he did to Makuta Mutran. But Ignica ultimately sought the best outcome for the innocent. Matt Toro was his hero, and now Ignica was going to be a hero for the rest of the world. So, as the mask learns from the actions of its guardians, the soul learns from the actions of the player, becoming either an angel or a demon by the end of the story. The Toa Ignica eventually did give his own life the same way Matt Toro did, to finally awaken Matanui in the final moments of the 2008 storyline. There are three characters often jokingly called the Trinity of Bionicle, and these are those three characters most closely associated with the Mask of Life: Matanui, Matt Toro, and Toa Ignica. The three whose consciousnesses end up being absorbed by the Mask of Life itself by the end of the storyline, each making their own heroic sacrifice for the Matt Toran universe. It's definitely not the same thing as Trinity, just like how Deltarune's playable characters have distinct differences to the Trinity as well. But I still could see these Deltarune characters being based on Bionicle a little bit. These characters being the player, Chris, and Dessa's remaining consciousness within the soul, all linked with not a mask, but a soul. Some plot points of Chapter 6 and 7 could play out in a similar way to Bionicle, but what I really wanted to get into was the portrayal of a darker yet darker character. So this is the big claim of my video about a character we know nothing about, so take everything in this theory with a grain of salt. Makuta parallels Gaster. Makuta is an interesting antagonist in the sense that he kind of manipulated destiny to get what he wanted. The Toa are destined to awaken the sleeping body of Matanui, and the only reason Makuta can never beat them is for one simple reason: they never give up. Heroes never give up. Heroes always fight for the bitter end for what they believe is right, and what the heroes believe is right is to awaken Matanui. But who says the body of Matanui, when awakened, needs to contain Matanui's consciousness? So Makuta removes Matanui's soul from Matanui's body, and he puts Matanui's consciousness into the mask. So maybe this is what happened. Gaster removes Dessa's soul from her body and puts Dessa's soul in a cage with human soul and parts. Makuta's own consciousness then takes the place of Matanui's soul, so when the Toa eventually do awaken Matanui, they awaken Makuta, in a state where he has the ultimate power Matanui once had. As Makuta swaps places with Matanui, perhaps Gaster's ultimate goal is to swap places with the prophesied angel. So in Deltarune, you have this idea of the roaring, where Titans are portrayed as devils disguised as angels of light, and they rise up to destroy everything. And then you have Bionicle, where a 40 million foot body of a deity rises with a demon's consciousness at the helm. In Deltarune, the Knight's goal, perhaps, is to raise Death from the dead. In Bionicle, the Toa's goal is to awaken Matanui from slumber. And that's why Gaster is portrayed as a devil, yet seemingly on our side, seemingly supportive of every single decision we make. All roads lead to the roaring. And where in Deltarune do we see something similar? Spamton, shredding his salesman facade to link with a heaven-piercing, workout-ready heavenly body, to become a deity, or at least an angel. Perhaps it's foreshadowing of something. Gaster reviving and becoming a discarded dream. An angel at the end of a game with rainbow wings. Just like in Bionicle, in the 2007 storyline, Makuta and a Maxilus body showed up to fight alongside the heroes rather than against them, helping them revive Matanui, then dipping out in 2008 to let the final parts of his plan come to fruition, because Matanui's reawakening was instrumental in the final parts of his plan. This could also relate to Banished Light World theory, where the Delta Warriors are destined to banish the Light World, because the Light World is the angel's heaven. So, the Toa are destined to awaken Matanui. Perhaps the heroes are destined to bring the Titans up out of the earth. There are definitely differences here. For example, the Delta Warriors already know the roaring is going to be a bad thing. In Bionicle, our heroes had every reason to believe Matanui's rise was a good thing. People live in hometown while Matanui was preemptively evacuated. Reign of Shadows. Thanks for watching. Bionicle is a series that inspires a lot of my creative process. It's part of the reason Nick and Lazuli is like that. I'm not 100% convinced Deltarune is based on Bionicle. The whole demon tries to become a deity thing is a common trope in media. I saw a few similarities and I wanted to talk about them. There are other ways I think Bionicle could relate to Deltarune in regards to themes and stuff. First of which being that the powers that be of Bionicle weren't necessarily embodiments of good or evil, but symbolic representations of creativity and destruction. Whereas Deltarune's powers that be are neither 100% good or 100% evil, and often embody both angelic and demonic imagery at the same time because of that. Lightners being like gods to the Darkners, and their behavior reflecting on how kids play with toys. The same way Matanui and Makuta are representative of different ways that kids play with Lego. Bionicle definitely has a higher view of destiny than Deltarune. To be fair, we don't know which model of prophecy Deltarune's world works off of. There's all types of prophecy models. There's predictions, there's foreknowledge, there's hard determinism, and all of these are distinctly different things that change how the prophecy works in regards to the rules of the story's universe. And Deltarune just doesn't really explain which model of prophecy it's working off of. People always assume hard determinism when they read stories, but there are different models that different stories work off of, and we just don't know which one Deltarune's using. Um, but I think the common theme between the way Bionicle and Deltarune portray Destiny is that Destiny is influenced by our own choices. We choose our destinies. So it's like, even if you're presented with knowledge of the future, you have the choice to do what you will with that knowledge of the future. And I think that's like a theme that you could really carry over between both stories. Okay, bye.